I wanted to muse momentarily on a concept which relates to both Cognitive Naught, School of Unlearning, but also to the alternative reality game that we're running at the moment called New Kind Festival. And the concept being that there is this amazing bed of learning, this thing that we're integrated into through being born into a physical body. I mean, we have a physiological system, we have also a social system that we're educated into, we have this universal exchange, these toroidal energies, we've got so much going on, and yet a lot of our attention and our learning and our action is contributed towards a particular framework, social, economic, moral, all these kind of things, which I feel often is devoid of the full interface with the universe, with each other, with ourselves. And so this is just a jamming on the idea of play, of imagination, of rewilding. There are all these things, all these offers all the time. You might walk into a room and there's this vibe, it's this intangible kind of feeling. You might have something in your body, maybe, I don't know, you haven't stretched your legs in a while, or maybe clots are building up, or maybe, your organs are aching, we're taking painkillers, so we block that signal off. Maybe we are driving down the road and there are amazing shifts happening. Maybe there's erosion, maybe there's weather patterns, really indicating a particular state of things, but we are so focused on the signs, on the white dotted lines, that we don't actually put our attention to the learning that's all around us at all times. I do believe that there is an innate desire to have freedom. And freedom, I don't think necessarily means to go and do nothing, to be on vacation. I do think it means to have the dexterity to engage in all the possibilities. And yet, I don't think we should avoid being irresponsible or frivolous, because there's a beauty in that boredom. I think we often are so distracted and so engaged in the busynesses and the urgencies that the real important things aren't even within our scope, not even within our periphery. And there's something about coming to stillness, coming to boredom even, perhaps, allowing ourselves the awkwardness of a conversation that dips to nothing, where we actually start to see the other things that are not conditioned, that are not predicted, that are not already pre-made and ready for us to engage in. I think there's a real validity to that. I approach all of this, when I say all of this, I mean it's a holistic endeavor to improve humanity. I mean, it involves everything. That's why in New Kind we have these 6 factions. I mean, there could be many factions, but they're essentially facets or approaches to the same thing. Whether you're an administrator, a politician, someone who's thinking about urbanization and social planning and economics and all these kind of aspects, or whether you want to jump over to the engineering standpoint, which still relates to that stuff, but it's more about the physical systems and the constructions and the architecture and the inventions and the energy generation, or where you want to take another step to the side from there to the purely artistic, the imaginative, the visionary, that often encompasses those other elements, but it can be colorful, playful, silly. Or you want to come over to the very grounded, earth-based things of land, our relationship as a gardener, what sort of food are we going to have, the very self-reliant element of being on the land, or over to the scouts, the pioneer, looking at the new, and also dealing with danger, dealing with first aid, dealing with childbirth, looking at different languages, looking at different climates. That's it's like a tendril that's stretching out into the unknown. Are there any more? What else is there? Healers. Healers is a beautiful one, and I think that is really being explored in the alternative communities at the moment, with New Age, Eastern philosophy, yoga practices, sound healings, all these kind of things. So we are in our little niches really dedicated and focused to this single pursuit of evolution. But I think there's something in the unhanding of the factions. There's something in the becoming dumb. There's something in the opening that is really vital and valuable. At the same time, as there's always a duality, I also think there's a real beauty in each of us being very focused so that we don't have to do everything all the time. I believe that there is an interconnectedness in systems, and yet the doing. I mean, I think conceptually we can mind hop. I can be that, I can be this, I can be that. I love that, I love that, I love that. But there's something about time and space that is perceptibly finite in the now. I mean, I could farm today and build something tomorrow, and then theorize and chat about politics the following day. But as far as a now goes, it's like this little scope which focuses in on what are you actually going to practically do in this moment. And there's something really relieving when we can actually release the noise, release the responsibility, release the huge scope, and do them one by one by one. However, those little particles, those focused little potent doings, need to come back to that interconnectedness, because ultimately it is a single system. Ultimately, I as a human being need many. I need to eat, I need to think, I need to exercise, I need to design even, how I get out of my front door, where I drive to. I need to understand mechanics. So I as a single system, and you could even go even more meta than that, like mind, body, spirit, etc. So you're looking at that interconnectedness, then me with my loved ones, I need to have that interconnectedness. That needs to influence, of course, my society. And then we also need to start understanding that human beings are part of nature. It's not sort of man against nature, but we are actually leveraging off and are part. I mean, it's in us and we are out, and we are assembling these things. Even though they're man-made things, they are actually assembled as particles. It's all chemistry broken down to different component parts and reassembled in different ways. It's still nature, even if it seems devoid of that sort of beauty and organic things, of these big hard structures. It still comes from nature. And that planet, this planet, Earth, is of course then part of a circulatory system, a solar system, a galaxy, and that in itself needs, of course, to circulate, and it's a fractal kind of concept where it needs to be these separate parts, but an integrated whole as well. And so there is that beautiful relief when you come to understand the echo element of the macro and the micro, where we can actually focus on one thing, and if that's done with true integration, of course, then it can feed into any kind of scope or scale that you want to refer to. So, as I said, this is a musing, this is an idea jam. But coming to some kind of conclusion, what I am proposing, and the element that I like to put forward, is that of a place of ideas, of lucid experience, of visceral interface with the intangible. So by creating an alternate reality game, I am essentially the demiurge, the crafter of the real. Because like in a game engine, you can say how heavy physics is, you can say the rubber content or how things slide, or how high your character can jump. So you can control the aspects. And so by creating an alternate reality game, an immersive theater environment, you can step in and start to have a more sensory experience of these things which were up until this point just poetry. And that is the value that I would like to add. Of course, there are so many amazing lifelong pursuits and academic paths and dedicated mastery of being a kung fu master, or living on the land and doing permaculture, or being a midwife. Like, all of these things take time. They take those nows being applied. And while I can conceptually inhabit all of them, I physically can only do a few. So what I'm encouraging us to do is to focus, is to do one of them, and yet see the interconnectedness with all, to unhand the limited scope through which we view where we are and what we are doing. So not have it be so prescribed that I am therefore going to be a mechanic, so I'm going to make cars so that cars can go on the road. Because really what we're doing is we're engaging in a philosophic pursuit of understanding, if you were a car mechanic, of understanding combustion and pressure and motion and physics and all these kind of things. So do what you do it focused, do it passionately, but never allow that focus to be the blinkers where you don't actually unplug and witness the constant learning that we're all doing. Because at all times, I believe this universe has an amazing capacity to embody the entire array of everything simultaneously. So you can be in one space and it can be horrible, and someone else is experiencing it as amazing. You can be in a state of atrophy, and then someone else is in a state of surplus. Like, they all concurrently exist, which is this really unusual paradox that we live in, where all these, it's an oxymoron, really. All these seemingly opposites are juxtaposed and coexist, seemingly contradicting each other. And that's the facet of the human psyche as well. These desires to be everything and only being able to be one thing, and yet we are all things. Like, it's very confusing and gets muddled. So I bring it all back to play. Having the bravery to act, having the humility to receive, having the practical focus of continuing along a chosen path, the willingness to be changed, and the alien mindset of unlearning our social programming and morals, so that we can actually allow ourselves access to the multifaceted lesson which is happening at all times, all around us, where we breathe and circulate, as does humanity around us, as does nature, and as does the universe. We are all in a phase together. a dilation of this space-time phase. We are part of something which is beyond our scope in the past, beyond our scope in the future. So let's just focus on now, being completely wild, open, playful, and loving. And I hope that New Kind Festival can be one platform where you can step into a place, choose an archetype, and be part of the true bigger-than-self entity which we do exist as. Thanks for mind jamming with me. This is Cognite or Not, Explorer of Ideas.